Yeah. Let me drop exclusive game from my exclusive mind. You be out here chasing fame, I stay steady on my grind. Zero diamonds, zero.
Thank you for tapping into the Exclusive Minds podcast. Today we're going to be having an exclusive conversation with exclusive content from Exclusive Minds. I'm your host, Rook, and
Joe?
let's get right into it.
This. All right. We're off and running. Episode 67.
67. Big 67.
Yeah. 67.
Wow.
Can you believe it? I'm seriously, 67 episodes. We actually have really... I know, obviously, we've slowed between episodes, but the fact that we're still doing it is kind of freaking amazing.
I know. I think if you look at it in perspective, 67, we figure each episode's like, what, between 45 and an hour. We'll call it an hour. 67 hours of
Content.
of us on the internet, which is going to be scary considering like AI is going to take over. They're just going to like, if someone wanted to, I'm sure they could probably use our voice and like really fuck with people.
Yeah.
Considering, but yeah, well, we just kind of looked before we started this. It's been about a month and some change since the last one.
February 24th. Yeah, I guess we were holding off on doing a podcast because we were going to the impression show for clothing. And then we missed the week after, and this is the first chance. So I think what we'll end up doing, maybe we'll even record 2 episodes.
We could do whatever.
So I think what we should probably do is this episode should focus in on our clothing, or the Exclusive Minds clothing, and our visit to Impressions 24 in Atlantic City. And for those that don't know, right, Impressions was a
clothing conference, kind of.
Yeah, like a printing, blanks, just a clothing industry trade show. That was the first time that I think you and I both attended some sort of an industry trade show on the clothing side.
I definitely think so, and I remember hearing that, like, the Impressions thing for a number of years, because when we first went to our, like, one of our embroiderers, Sherry, she recommended us going because, like, I was always asking her a bunch of questions about it.
Yep.
She was like, hey, there's an Impressions thing coming up. This was back probably like 2018 or 19, and I never went. And I'm like, after going last weekend with you, it was like a lot of fun just seeing, you know, all of the people in this space, and there's like people that obviously had like years upon years upon years of like expertise and knowledge and everything like that. But yeah, like Joe said, it was just kind of summarizing like not only vendors, but also like the people behind the scenes that are actually making it, and the machinery, which, was incredible. Like one of the machines was like almost 60 grand. That was like, it could print like 1,000 shirts or something a minute. I don't even know what the specs on it, but it was absolutely insane.
Yeah, it was weird because we kind of went for 2 purposes. One was to look for new clothes or new print or blanks to use for the stuff that we release. And then the other thing was to actually look at some of the hardware to see if it made any sort of financial sense for us to try and bring some of it in-house so that we're not relying on outside vendors, right? Because every time, I don't want to blame the people that we work with, because it's not really true. But obviously when we say we're going to release something and then we have to get it over to a third party to actually do the production, that sometimes goes a little longer than I think we think it should, even though it's not fair for them because they have a business they're running, right? So, yeah, and then the next thing we know, we're like, shit, we're 2 weeks behind what we promised people, and it, it's more probably on us just not project managing it right. But we're like, it would really be cool if we could bring it in house, because everything in this world's kind of going to
do it yourself.
Well, I mean, instant gratification, but also real time inventory. So one of the challenges we always have is, right, as a small shop, we can't afford to foot the bill to bring in thousands of pieces and then have have 600 small sitting on the shelf where all the mediums blew out in the first day and we're short those, right? It's just it's logistically a pain in the ass. But
yeah, no, you're 100% right. Kind of going real quick onto that, on putting like a quick pause on that, like exactly what he said in the regard, and you could apply that to any business. The best thing that you could do is have a full-on grasp of the operation, and then also knowing what makes sense. Like if we were to have, like you said, 600 smalls on the shelf, that's taking up storage in your house more than likely. You know what I'm saying? So then it's like,
in our case, yes,
it would be like just like more of like a pain in the ass, and you're just like not moving it. Inventory sitting. Now, there's always the good thing about having inventory sit because, for example, over the past year, and me and you've kind of expressed this, or I've expressed it to you at least anyway, is like people will see something that people are wearing and they might not buy it the first go around,
Yes.
but then they see people wearing it. They're like, oh, that's actually cool in person. Where can I buy it? And I'm like, we don't have it because it was like,
sold out.
we're like a sold out, or it's like a pre-order system. And the one thing that we did good last time was kind of pulling the curtain back further, and this is just kind of more about the process, was I had like 10 t-shirts made of the design we were going with, and then that screen was already made. It was ready to go. It was just a matter of getting the hoodies. So then when we got the pre-order for the hoodies, it was just a matter of ordering the hoodies and getting them over to the print shop, which they were already kind of like into the swing of things of like, all right, we can put that on, no problem.
Yeah,
You know what I'm
I
saying?
mean, and for those that don't know, right? So typically there's 3 ways that you can apply graphics or content onto a piece of clothing, right? There's embroidery, which is the most expensive.
But the nicest.
Right? And we'll explain why it's the most expensive, as we learned from the hardware, right? But so embroidery is what we'll call the top of the line, right? That's the most expensive, but it also is typically the nicest looking, and it typically lasts the longest.
By a stretch.
Right. And then you've got screen printing, which is kind of the traditional, it's almost like painting onto the clothing and then applying some heat to apply it so that it sticks, right? That's kind of the middle ground, I would say.
I would say so, yeah.
Right. But there is a significant setup process. It's kind of hard to explain without actually seeing it, but it's like a system that rotates around and applies different colors at different places, and it's a whole process, right? And so it's time consuming, and it does take a lot to set it up, which is the reason why we typically just do a run, and then as soon as it's sold out, that's it. You can't get it, right? So if someone comes to us and says, hey, I want a medium, like Dave said, and we had sold out, we really can't do it because there's a setup fee, there's this whole process, and doing 1 or 2 or even 5 would be cost prohibitive versus just doing the full run up front. So that's the big challenge here. But so screen printing is kind of in the middle, and then there's DTF, digital or film.
Yeah, DTF, and then there's also, so it's DTF and
heat
then
application, right? Which is kind of in the same bucket, which typically I think was considered the lower end. And I'll be honest with you, some of the stuff we saw on site I thought was really, really sharp.
Yeah, no, and thank you for setting me up for that, because I was just about to say, like Joe said, when you have silkscreen, that was like, and I was talking to Sherry about it. She said that's been around for like 100 years,
forever.
like way back in the days. Like this is like predating both of us. That's how they would print shirts, and like Joe said, it would last a little bit longer. Heat transfer was always considered the bottom echelon of like, all right, if you want to get something quick, or like the way I like to look at it is like if you go to the boardwalk, and if you remember, they used to like print the shirts right in front of you, that same like plastic papery feel, you would like pull it apart, it would just crumble right before your eyes. Well, after going to the expo, me and Joe were like, wait a second, this shit's pretty legit now. Like it's not, and a lot of the people were saying that there's a big kind of like pushback from a lot of companies because they always had the bad stimulation, like, hey, this stuff was always cheap, this was always bad. But we had it on hand. I wore it for a couple days, like during my trip. I had one just to
really
see
stretched the crap out of it.
Stretching
No
it,
cracks at all.
Nothing. And it's like it's almost like a system where if we buy our own printer, or buy our own press rather, those 1 to 2 off orders make more sense than like first buying the blank, going to a manufacturer or going to a printer, getting it printed, then them sending it back, or me go pick it up and then shipping it out. It's like there's like 4 to 5 steps in that process. This one's like, if we have the shirts in the shirts in-house and then print it, it's like it takes that 5-step process or 4-step process, it knocks it down to like a 2-step, because it's like we have the blanks, ship it directly after.
Yeah, because I mean, generally speaking, no, I shouldn't say generally, because we've actually gotten kind of creative with colors, but typically we were doing mainly blacks and whites on the hoodies, or some sort of off-white. And we throw in a couple of additional colors, but now we could just, in theory, right, since a t-shirt is a t-shirt and a hoodie is a hoodie, well, I mean, in the sense of what you would be ordering, we could just inventory all of these different colors and not print them. And then as orders come in, just print them and send them out on the fly, what we call real-time inventory, right? So
a la carte, as they would say.
yeah, so I mean, it becomes a little bit easier. And yeah, so I mean, the print to film and the heat transfer, I think we kind of just looked at it as sort of a joke. And I think what drove me to sort of say, well, let's look at it is because I know on some of the screen printing we've done, in a short period of time, I don't know what it is, 6 months, a year after throwing it in the wash a bunch of times, right? That starts to crack. And the stuff that we saw with the heat transfer, I was like, man, this is really sharp.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And then there's like 2 applications for the heat press that we also saw. So one would be printing onto clothes, like hoodies and t-shirts, etc. But then if we also get into patches and whatnot,
yes, we can do it.
There's like an application for that as well. So like the common example, and I was telling Joe, is like, all right, you think of Fear of God, which has the Essentials line. They always had like the PVC patches, like one on the bottom left of their cuffling, I guess it would be called. Like, I don't know, what is that, like cuffling, right? Yeah, cuffling on the bottom left of the left arm, and then on the back of the hood, which is pretty sharp. So it's like if we wanted to up our game and do that at like a lower minimum, we definitely can do that versus trying to go, out of our, inner circle or even go across seas to like get that done. So there was a bunch of stuff that we learned, at least on my end, you know what I mean? Like seeing it all done.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that was really nice about going, right, is it really got the creative juices going, right? Because we had considered doing patches for
number of years,
forever, and we never really saw them, right? We saw a couple at Sherry. She showed us a few, and we were like, yeah, okay, and they were probably the kind of the stitch ones, and they just, I don't know, they didn't excite me, but we got to see the PVC and the silicone ones,
the
which
fake
are
leather too,
super cool, and the fake leather or faux leather, right? And those were super cool too, and we're like, oh man! And then of course that spirals into, well, we put these on hats, we could put these on all of the clothing. Is becoming sort of whether it's we were talking about maybe doing as the neck tag instead of the neck tag. It's a PVC application, which I don't know if will work because it'll probably irritate people's neck lines. So there's some things we have to consider. But yeah, it was really cool to see that, and that's heat transfer as well. So. That's kind of the synopsis of how you can get graphics on the clothes, right? And as I mentioned, right, there's cost deltas between all of it, right? So embroidery is the most expensive, screen printing is probably in the middle, and then heat press is relatively inexpensive to do. But it was always subject to quality concerns. And so we started to look going, well, what would it cost us to get an embroidery machine, right?
Off the gate, you're looking at 10 G's plus.
So we were like, whoa. Yeah. That one was kind of crash and burn right away because the ROI is really difficult for us to do, right? You'd have to crank that bitch.
I mean, not even for us, though. Think about like an embroiderer, though. Do you think
it has to run nonstop.
It would have to run a long time because what would the markup even be? Like let's say you're making $10 a piece for $10,000. To pay it off, what is that?
Yeah, it's like 1,000 prints.
Yeah, 1,000 prints. So, I mean, it's not completely out of range.
No. But I mean, you definitely have to run it, right?
You have to get your money's worth.
Yeah, for us, we bounced between like occasionally doing embroidery, and it was like, yeah, that's because we were thinking, we could start to do hats, we could do all kinds of cool stuff, and that's the other thing we should probably mention, right? So we quickly learned, like, we're thinking that you could just buy one piece of equipment and print on anything. Right. And that's not the truth, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everything's kind of especially, right? So if you're doing shirts, it's a shirt press, it's a shirt thing. The embroidery does have the ability, I think, to go both ways, but the screen printing and the
heat press
are definitely ones for shirts, and then they have a whole separate line of system for doing hats, right? So you have to buy two.
When we were like at halfway out the door, I think you looked it up on your phone real quick.
Yeah, we went back.
Wait, there's two. You could get like an attachment. We went back in, we're looking at it, we're like, can you get an attachment for this? He's like, no, that's like a whole separate
it's a whole separate machine.
And we're like, holy shit.
And then we go look there, and we're like, oh, so it's like twice the price to do hats and shirts.
So it was definitely a thing. And that was like another thing too. I think you were the one that really brought it up, was like we had like a full coming to moment thing where like we never really did hats. And then we saw a bunch of hats down there. We're
super
like,
cool.
You could keep hats just on shelf and
pull them off, and apply,
whatever to it. You don't even need to have a, it's like a one size fits all type deal, just like with the adjustable back or what have you. So that was something that we were like, holy shit. Like again, the juices were flowing just because we saw so much stuff and learning so much stuff that it was just endless. I think you were in the middle of explaining something, and I apologize. You were talking about the different applications for embroidery machines. How much?
Yeah,
the
yeah.
embroidery
So
machine?
I mean the embroidery machine to do multiple colors basically easily without having to constantly change things was $10,000.
Straight up.
A show special $10,000, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, he was like, and with this one, you could go back
buy it
thread
before
by
you leave.
thread. Yeah, thread by thread. And he did like a live demo where he like wrote my name on the
it was a brother.
Brother
So
rep.
everybody's heard of Brother, I'm sure, right? For printers and stuff like that. But
tried
same
to-
people.
He tried to pull some slick stuff on me and Joe when we were sitting there. He's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, one of my biggest clients is from the small town in which you guys are
we're,
from."
we're in this little itsy bitsy town, and
He's like,
the guy's like, "Oh, I know so and so," and we're like, "Yeah, I never heard of her, but sure, hey, whatever."
that was funny.
But so I mean, the embroidery machines were really expensive, and you could find cheaper, but I mean, you're still talking thousands and thousands of dollars for a commercial level embroidery machine, right? You can get an embroidery machine for probably $1,500, but at volume, that's going to crush you, and you have to constantly swap colors and stuff like that. So I mean, it's let's call it whatever it is, like 7, 8, 10 grand to get an entry level machine, right? And they had, and as Dave said, they had multiple, like, it was like a machine that literally was like 4 or 5 of these kind of sandwiched together in one sort of row. That was like
just banging
60
away.
grand. And
Yep.
I was like, yeah, okay. But so embroidery is super expensive. So when you see it, be impressed because it's
for sure.
not easy to do.
And like one of the things I saw was like, I don't know, I think we looked at it too. Like on the back, this guy had like a 10 by 10, like big embroidered like mural thing on the back, and it's like that probably took a day of just the machine running nonstop around the clock just to get that done. You know what I mean? 'Cause think about it. We're doing what, maybe call it 5 inches across.
Yeah.
And that's probably. And
I mean, embroidery's not. I mean, for me, at least in my head, it's not for large graphics. You could,
I wouldn't
but
say so. No.
I mean, it would hammer the machine. It would. I mean,
Tie
like
it
you
up
said,
for a long time.
time consuming. Like that full back embroidery is like, damn.
Yeah.
I mean, that's something else. And then you get into the screen printing, and of course, those machines are not cheap either, right? It's pretty expensive, and you basically need a system with that, right? So you have to develop the screens, then you've got to have the rotational machine that goes around and applies the ink. And then you have to have an oven that basically heat it and make sure that it stays on. And, that's same thing. You're talking thousands and thousands of dollars just for a single unit.
I asked her last week when I was over her house. I said, "How much does this go for?" And she just sold one of her used ones for $8,000 all in. So the used one, $8,000.
Yeah. We looked. I mean, we've been looking on Facebook and stuff like that, and they pop up, and they're still kind of pricey. And then obviously you step down into heat transfer, and man, it gets so inexpensive. It's like,
it's really
wait a second,
it's a competitive space. Yeah.
And I think even to this day, even having seen some of the quality that comes out of it, we're like, that's crap. We can't do that, right? We're still here debating it, right? Instead of just saying, let's try it, right? Because we're like, man, it's inexpensive to do it.
It's super inexpensive, and it's like.
So basically, what you're doing is you're buying what almost amounts to kind of like a waffle maker. I mean, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like a waffle maker, right? You're basically pressing a heat transfer in the T-shirt or whatever it is, right? It could be anything, right? We saw them do it on coffee mugs. We saw it on hats.
They were going.
We saw it on
crazy,
any kind of clothing material you can think of, right?
Basically,
and
whatever could take heat,
whatever can take 300 degrees and doesn't melt, right? Can pretty much do it. So, I mean, the options were endless, and it's just basically a fancy waffle iron, right? And the prices were all over the place. It's so funny. So the ones we were looking at, because they came recommended by some of the people in the booth that do the heat transfer, said, well, what would you recommend? And they're like, this company Stahl, Stahl. And if you're listening, we would love to take one and do a full review.
Holy shit! I would take one in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
We'll
So if you're looking for a true comprehensive newbie and you want a web review, guess what? Call us. Team at exmnds.com, and we will take one.
We have to save that for the next one about the sponsorship that was in our email. I saw something.
Oh yeah, we can. Yeah, we'll get
talk.
to that.
We'll
yeah.
get to that. But So we were asking the industry people about the Stahl.
Yeah, and they were all like, "Yeah, that's kind of the industry sort of go to."
Yeah. But they have so many different things because the girl was saying get one that has 2 on the top, and then the other girl was like, "No, just get the one."
Yeah, we heard different stories, so it's like, who do you believe?
Get the one that like auto lifts. So there's like a bunch
and even the guy at Stahl. So Stahl had a booth, and we walked over there, and that's when we started to see what they had. But even that guy, I think, said you didn't necessarily need to do it on both sides.
Yeah, he just had one side, and then we kind of saw what happens when you do it just with the one. It kind of just sticks together. You just have to rip it apart, which is not a big deal.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting because we went over to the Stahl booth, looked at the heat presses, and theirs are like, I don't know, $2,000 to $3,000 for a single kind of unit. But it's all digital and everything. Like you dial in the heat, you dial in the time that you press it, because like PVC patches, as we found out, require more time under heat versus just a heat transfer. But the process is amazingly simple.
My God, I did a hat when I was there
in 10 seconds, right? And the application was rock solid. It didn't seem like that was coming off anytime soon, right? No. And it was clean and
I was going to say,
super
did you end
cool.
up putting it on just to feel it or no?
I did, and it's on a shirt, it's a little unnerving. That's why I think if you do it on shirts, you got to do small on the sleeve, or on the cuff, like you said, because those aren't constantly in contact with your body.
Yeah,
like doing a patch on the chest, unless it's a jacket or outerwear or you're layering it. Yeah, I don't think PVC patching's the way to go. But yeah, so I mean, we looked, and then of course there were a whole bunch of other brands, and like Ninja Transfer, which is a company that does these films or DFTs. They had a machine, and I took a picture of it, and I was looking to see if anybody was in the booth, and there wasn't. And I found it on like online. That machine that the Ninja guys were using was like $300.
Oh, really?
Super cheap. That one might have been a little bit more because it had a foot pedal and some other stuff. So that might have been their higher end model. But they basically have like you go on Amazon, and they're like $300, $400, $500, and I'm like, wow!
I was like, you just bought some coffee equipment.
This is cheap, and I'm so.
Anyway.
It's so funny though. Like even having seen it and going, wow, the quality's pretty nice. I'm still like on the fence about even like diving into it.
So let's talk about that. I mean, you're in sales, right? First, how important are first impressions in a business, right? Like
super important.
Like, because think about it, because DTF or heat transfer has been around for a number of years now. When they first launched, it was subpar quality. We could all agree on that. And even to this day, after seeing it on T-shirts and seeing it on hoodies and seeing it across the boards, we've tried it. We're like, holy shit, this is actually pretty good. We still have that reserve. So like, just making that first impression is killer, because like now, like I said, it's just taking a lot to even like jump ship and even try it. You know what I mean? It's I don't know if there's
I will say that the other thing that because we obviously got some samples from some of these people that printed samples, and I think there was another thing that I kind of took away is the DFT on larger graphics. Though the quality and the color is super crisp and super sharp, the bigger the image, I think it does get a little bit plasticky, and it kind of has that plasticky feel that, you kind of remember. And I think you even made a comment on the one. You were like, yeah, it feels like it looks amazing, but it did have that little bit of a cheap feel to it. As you shrink that graphic down and it gets a little smaller, because one of the T-shirts basically had a little, the little thing that we typically do, like the 4x4, maybe a 6x6 in some cases on the chest. Those were super clean, and you'd have a hard time telling the difference between that and the screen print.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's with everything. You know what I mean? Like the more you kind of enlarge it, I know which one you were talking about. It was like 2 letters kind of mixed together or something like that.
Yeah,
and it just was like big, but like you feel it, and I don't know how to describe it other than plasticky, or like if you guys remember like Echo, the brand Echo, like their stuff always kind of had that like feel to it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it like I said, as you looking at it, you'd be like, wow, it's crisp and clean and it looks perfect, right? Wearing it, I don't know if you'd actually notice any plasticky because it's on the outside of the clothing, right? So it's really just a matter of someone came up to you and started rubbing their hands on you, right? Yeah. And then you'd be like, oh, it's plasticky. But I mean, that was probably the one negative. But again, from distance, it looks fabulous. It went on, and we really were stretching the hell out of it because we were like, this is going to crack, or it's going to do something. It's going to deform, and man, it held up really well. So we're like, I don't know. So
maybe we throw it in the wash a couple times.
Yeah,
to see how it goes,
so
you know?
these are the things that we've been kind of racking our brain, because I know we've been really, really, really soft on clothes lately. But this is part of the thing that we've been trying to, kind of figure out how we want to move forward, right? Because we've been doing the hoodies in screen printing with the occasional embroidery, and I don't know. I think we just think we're sort of losing touch or out of control or not owning the full end-to-end. So I think we might give it a shot just to see how it goes. And if people just come back and tell us it totally sucks, we might back off on it. But I think I'd be pleasantly surprised if we do it.
I think it would be refreshing just to see it out there. Because like, what's the major downfall? Like, what we do bad for a drop, and kind of people are like, yeah, after 5 watt, like, but that's stuff we're trying out. We're testing that right now. But
one of the other things that we've always been challenged with is returns and exchanges, right? So we talked about this, because it's like,
you were saying that
it's like super hard for us to. I mean, we're not Amazon, right? We can't have returns. We just can't do it, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so we pretty much say, look,
spent.
as soon as you buy it, it's yours, right? Because we can't have you throw on a piece of clothing and then return it. We don't.
That's pretty standard across the board for young.
I think it is for smaller clothing things, right?
Yeah.
It's once you buy it, you're done. But
you
never want to do that. Or like in the cases I mentioned, right? I think some of our silk screening stuff, after a year or so, you kind of expect it's going to fade or it's going to wear. So it's tough to deal with that. But if if it's misprinted or something's wrong after you get it, it sucks that we sorry, there's nothing we can do about it because we don't have any to exchange it. And with the print to film, right, we could, in theory, make some corrective actions, and it's a little easier to work with potentially.
It's something that's at least on the ttable versus completely off the table altogether. You know what I mean?
I mean, if it's something that's really wrong and we want to correct it and make it right, and we've done that where we'll just keep it and we'll refund your money or something. Right?
That girl with the mask in Canada
that's
was
a whole different story. But
she was like, she put it on, tried a mask, and was like,
in the height of COVID.
Yeah, in the height of COVID, she's like, I want to return the mask that I already tried on. Like,
yeah, no, that's not how that works. Right?
Like,
yeah, it was pretty funny. Come on.
But yeah, I think those were like the main takeaways as far as printing goes.
Yeah, hardware wise, that's kind of the story, and I know it's a little bit behind the scenes. But if you're ever curious about, your shirts and stuff like that, this is the process even Adidas or Nike go through. Right? They're just doing it. They're contracting it out, but whoever they're contracting it out is kind of going through this, and they're obviously at a different level than this, but it's the same process.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I want to touch on as far as that goes, as far as printing and stuff goes, it's incredible. I guess end user more so. It's incredible, like how much the markup is for clothing when you make it versus like buying it. Like, for example, if a company wants to buy company jackets, they wouldn't blink at the thought of spending $99 on like a jacket. You know what I mean? They wouldn't blink because they're buying probably like 20 of them. Like, we just got some vests done. We had jackets done. I gave my boss the invoice for it, and he paid it no problems, whatever. But it's like the markup for it is incredible. And you were talking to the one guy at the blanks booth. You're like, I have a problem just even buying clothes and understanding. It's like... Yeah. There's an insane margin markup when you're talking about clothes, and that's why I feel like we're always reasonably priced when we release stuff, because like some of these guys putting out $120 hoodie, and you're looking at it, you're like,
yeah.
You gotta just give them that look.
Well, I mean, look,
but you need to raise it to keep the lights on. You know?
Yeah. I mean, look, there are other tangible in costs that we. Maybe don't take into consideration, right? Marketing has a significant expense, right? Having personnel and people and doing returns and stuff like that, it's all got a cost. And there's a reason for it, but it is difficult. Like, I'm like, and then you look at Kanye, who's just completely screwing this entire industry up with his horse shit. And I'm like, holy mackerel, this guy's nuts.
Did you get your t-shirt?
No, I haven't gotten anything. So that's one of the issues with it, right?
I got mine.
You're paying $20 for a freaking hoodie, but guess what? It takes them like 8 months to ship it. Let's face facts. That dude is not making money at $20 on hoodies and stuff like that. Did you see? Sorry, I know we're going to go off tangent here with the Yee thing, but I mean, did you see that he just released a shirt that's got, I think in Hebrew,
like fuck Adidas.
Fuck Adidas. I mean, I'm like, dude.
I saw that.
Oh, it's just grade A trolling.
I ordered, like, I know we're gonna go too far, but I ordered something off the website just to see the quality. The quality's
You got
what
it,
you
right? You
expect.
just-
I got it. It was
You were
a
going to
size.
bring it, you didn't.
It was a size 1. I put it on, so a size 1's a small. It fit though,
Whoa.
but it was like it fit up here, just down here lengthwise. So like I'm up taller, but the actual fit was good. It was baggy. It like went to here. I would say it went to like probably here on my torso.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I don't know what size you ended up going with.
I
but
don't even remember because he's got the weird
it was
sizing.
like 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Well, I only knew because you had mentioned
Yeah.
it.
So, but I don't know. So I don't know how it's gonna fit, but I can't wear it. Like, it's probably just something I wear around the house.
You know what I'm wondering? Because I ordered. Well, I think I ordered the shoes, the boots, or whatever.
Oh yeah.
The pods.
Pods. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that doesn't really matter, right? I mean, that was whatever that was, a size 2. I'm sure it's whatever. It doesn't really matter, right? Because it's a shoe.
But the quality's good. For
yeah,
what
I
it's
mean,
worth.
his stuff's always. I mean, it was always good. I mean, I just. He's selling the freaking hoodie for $20. It's funny, everything's $20, right?
Yeah.
So he's selling socks, $20.
You go to
hoodies, $20.
If you go to Starbucks, you get 2 drinks. It's $20. So you
Right,
get like a shirt.
You can't, I mean, but at the same time, you're like, wow, he's leaving a lot on the table. God bless him, man. Because I mean, let's face facts. Everybody knows that he could be making more money on that shit, and he is just
Easily.
$20.
Well,
I'm like,
we've seen it, right?
Cheers,
Like he started by making it $180 or $200. People bought it, and he refunded the $180. So,
I know it's an FU moment, and I guess it's great when you get to the point where you've got FU money and you just don't care. I mean,
that's what they look like for the people who are watching. That's the
yeah, it's wild. Just go to Yeezy.com. I think it is, right?
Yep, and you can find it. But nonetheless, I think we're going quickly back to the impression stuff, trying to get that. The one thing we also found was a cool manufacturer of blanks, which was one of the things we I would say was like more of like a side mission going in there looking for that. I mean, obviously you always wanted to test the stuff. I wasn't going in there inspecting to say like, hey, this is like, there's like a real possibility of finding a competitor for who we usually use.
I mean, so in fairness, right? LA Apparel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shout out to them.
Yeah, they were the ones who gave us the free passes to go because it's a charged event, right? So they let us go, and we knew there was going to be some blank vendors there. And yeah, so that kind of spurred some interesting thoughts and stuff like that. I think the very first booth we went to had hockey jerseys, and we were like, yes,
those were cool.
yeah. So we were like, yes, let's do. We're doing hockey jerseys, right? So that's on the list.
Yeah.
And then we ran in that, and like the next booth was hats, and we're like, yes, we're doing hats.
And then after that was socks. If you remember, the guys from Westchester.
Yeah, there was a guy local who was doing just socks for hockey teams or something like that. And we're like, it was weird that he actually had a booth because that's all he was doing was socks. And we're like, yes, we're doing socks. It was like, so I mean, the juices got flowing when it came to sort of the creativity side of it. But we ended up again, without kind of exposing more and just sharing exactly what we're doing, right? I think everybody kind of knows, right? We buy material or clothes from somebody, we apply our graphics to it, and then we resell it, right, for a slight markup.
Yeah.
And
but they promote that though. It's not like we're stealing. It's like people that make the blanks promote doing that. So it's like not
right. It's just an industry thing. It's I mean, it is what it is, right? So. Yeah, and the quality of the blanks was really all over the place, if you ask me. Right, there was some really low end kind of cheesy shit, like just your simple like what's probably a $2 T-shirt, which is crap. And then this one place we landed on, man, they had some really. I mean, I thought it was Kanye's like source, right? The quality of their materials was right around like the stuff that we see from him, and I'm like, whoa.
Well, Kanye's people were there. The people that invited us, Los Angeles Apparel. That's what he uses for his tour stuff. So every time he's on tour, that's the people that invited us. That's what he uses. But the stuff that you're talking about, they're legit, and the guy said like he made stuff for Taylor Swift, so it was like cool to see that. But he's like, Taylor Swift ordered like 25,000 bags from us or something like that.
Right. It was what are they? Totes.
Tote bags. Yeah. It was good quality stuff, man. I mean, you can't hate on it. It was awesome to see it, and they had a lot of options. Like one thing that we kind of not lack right now, but with people that we get a lot of our stuff from, they don't have as many options across the board, like as far as like
they have options, but they're all what I'll call just sort of plain vanilla options, right? It's here's a tee in 16 colors, here's a hoodie, and then there's a couple variations, like there'll be the drawstring or no drawstring, right? But there's not a lot of creativity, and I think that's where you kind of see this industry diverge, right? You're either basically buying blanks, or you're buying kind of tried and true, or you're on the Paris or Italian fashion weeks, and where you're actually creating materials. And there's really not a lot. There's a huge gap in between. There's no like gray area in between. It's you're buying blanks, or you're designing clothes that are $8,000 for a hoodie, right? And there's nothing in between, really. There truly is nothing. No,
and this kind of was a good look at that because, well, before I get into what the applications would be, but like you would see like the one thing that me and you constantly talk about is like the outdoor wear, and there had like an outer jacket that like we saw, or there's a couple of variations of it that were there. There was like book bags. And the one thing was like when I was on my trip over the last week was like I need to up my like travel equipment because they were like like at TSA they were busting my balls about the duffel bag. I had a duffel bag. It was like probably this big.
Oh, too big to get in.
Like this big. They were like, it's not too big lengthwise, but height wise it was too big. And I was like, man, just put it on the damn plane.
That's not how
like
it works.
like whatever. But
we gotta talk about that.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. But anyway, long story short, the people that they had their own duffel bags. I was like, if we get a thing with them, we'll just make a duffel bag. Fuck it. We start making stuff that's in our everyday life. You know what I mean?
Well,
like,
for sure.
Like that we could apply. And I think
because we talked about the outdoors, right? We actually have the domain, right? ExclusiveMindSOutdoors.com, right? To kind of tackle that market because we're in love with Arc'teryx and stuff like that. We're like, well, we can do it, right? And we can.
I went to the Arc'teryx thing. I'll have to talk about that on another one. But we can do it. It's just a matter of like getting access to it and actually doing it. It's just like...
Though I did learn something very interesting because I did some homework on GoreTex, right? And that's a whole interesting thing because I was thinking that we would go down and see people that make high-end like GoreTex blanks. Not going to happen, and I'll tell you why. So it's interesting. Let me tell you. So I mean, one of the things that I'm always looking at is outerwear that's GoreTex, right? Or my cycling gear is actually most of my cycling gear is Gore wear. It's actually made by Gore, right? Cool. And for those who don't know, right, GoreTex is waterproof material that's legendary, right? It's been in the industry forever, and it's kind of the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to sort of outdoor wear. So they rigidly control who can gain access to that. And so if you look, they only partner up with companies that I think have shown that
they have like a sales order.
They have a design, like they're actually creating product and specialty uses for like fire and water, and if it's going into like commercial things. Like if you go to their website, like Arc'teryx is listed, there's very few vendors that are actually listed. So you have to have this whole thing. It's just, you can't just call up and say, hey, give me a ream of Gore material that I'm going to stitch and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, no, we don't know who you are. We're not going to ship it to you. We have to have this relationship and all this other stuff. And so that's why you'll probably see even vendors like Kuhl, Kuhl, right? They're kind of a upscale outdoor brand, right? None of their materials GoreTex. It's kind of interesting. So if you look,
I had to get it.
You'll see a lot of waterproof materials, but they're not Gore. And the people that do have Gore, they'll call it out. They'll say, we're GoreTex, and it's like a different relationship.
Well, Gore also, like when they use their stuff, they always give like a card, say GoreTex on the tag.
Yes.
Because every time I got like one of those jackets that have it, it'll be a separate here's like a verified.
Yeah, it's co-marketing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, the one jacket that we seen, the guy said it was waterproof because we were asking like if we could embroider on it, and he was like, "Oh,
no, because it
messed up the waterproofing." So that's interesting to know, though. Maybe, like I said, later down the road when we start making our own stuff, we would probably have to talk to them directly, be like, "Hey, this is our blueprint of like custom stuff versus otherwise." Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I mean, you'll still see a lot of waterproof breathable materials. Like everybody's kind of copied it, but if you want actual Gore-Tex, it's
like the cream of the crop. Yeah,
it's not something you can do. I don't even know if it's easy to do. It sounds like it's incredibly draconian to actually get that or get a relationship with them. And like you said, I think anytime you actually produce anything, it has to be you have to have co-marketing with them, and it has to have the Gore-Tex, their emblem on the clothing, which is kind of standard. So there's this whole thing. But yeah, so I mean that was kind of interesting. But
I know the co-branding pisses you off a little bit with like the Adidas, or like if you see it on the like, 'cause that's like a lot of the stuff that like S&S would promote would be like.
Yeah, so I mean they're so Adidas, Columbia, and Nike, I think, are notorious for
co-branding,
being sort of when we talk about blanks, right? They'll sell you their stuff all day long, but it'll obviously have the Adidas logo on it, and we're like, yeah, that's I mean, as a creative, I don't want to share space with Adidas. I don't want to be a billboard for Adidas, right?
Unless it's a collab. That's a different situation.
Well, yeah, but this is
this is not a collab.
We're not collabing, so I mean, I don't want to. I mean, why the hell am I buying your shit and then advertising your product?
Yeah,
and paying you for it.
Exactly,
so I mean, in their defense, man, it's great, right?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of the stuff that I get for work, work stuff. It actually, I get it, right? You're like, oh shit, look, it's North Face. North Face is another one, the co-brands.
Oh, really?
Right? So if you look at half the clothing I have, it's all North Face. And I'm like, it's cool because they're like, oh, look, it's North Face. But I'm like, at the same time, I'm like, as a creative, why the hell do I want to share? It's like a free billboard for my competition. Like, screw that.
Yeah, I think it's weird. Like, they probably have like a separate division. It's almost like a polo situation.
Oh, I'm sure they do.
You know what I mean? Like Polo had like Polo, and then it was Polo like Assassin or something like that, or whatever it was called. But it was basically like the lower echelon of the brand, and they're just returning the blanks. Like,
it was Chaps.
Was it?
Yeah, Ralph Lauren Chaps.
Okay, but they're just like, but that is just like probably like. They know they're buying it for like probably pennies on the dollar, and then upcharging it even to like $20, like what Kanye's doing, is still making a crazy margin because they're doing thousands upon thousands of collab things with these brands that don't care. So
yeah, so I mean that definitely rubs me the wrong way. And I know we walked in a couple booths and it was all like
it was branded. Yeah.
It was all branded. I'm like, I get the appeal in some cases, but I'm like, I don't want to put some dumbass's logo. I mean, even the clothing that we get, I'm like thinking to myself, well, why the hell do I want to advertise North Face? Yeah. Like, why am I doing that? I mean. So I guess you could see it both ways, but that's one thing that I definitely absolutely was like, no, forget it. Right? I'm not co-branding with you. That's it. We're doing our thing, and it's supposed to be our clothes, and it's not it's not Adidas and it's not Nike, and it never will be.
There's probably some people that are through the moon that it's North Face though. Like some of the I don't know if any of the people that you work with are like, oh, we got like a North Face. Like that's
probably, what I'm saying.
Like, I mean, probably to some people it's a flex.
Some of those higher end ones have cachet, right? Oakley does it. All the major vendors. I'm sure
Arc'teryx does it with. Like probably
maybe I don't know.
Maybe like Apple or something like that.
I don't think I've ever seen them co-brand anything. So that's kudos to them, right? But yeah, I mean, I guess in theory you could buy one of their jackets off the shelf and then print it anything you want on it, and that's in theory co-branding. But I'm not a big fan of that. So that kind of like killed a couple boosts. But yeah, I mean, this one that we ran across. Super high end. I mean, it was really. I mean, then they had everything. They had tees, long sleeves, hoodies, and all kinds of different weights of materials, designs that were kind of unique and interesting, in the more than just like one or two varieties. Right? It was a whole bunch of stuff, and they had all kinds of outerwear. Mm-hmm. So they had the jackets that we were looking at, and it was like, wow, backpacks, totes,
puffer jackets, which was cool.
Puffer jackets.
I've never seen a puffer jacket.
And we were like, oh, yeah.
That's probably like a $200 ticket item right there, $160 at least.
But still, I mean, when you're talking,
like to resell it, I'm saying like end consumer price probably $200.
Right. I mean, $160. Christ, a Patagonia puffer jacket's like $400, right? So
still beating the.
And I don't even think they were that. So I mean, this is part of that challenge where you walk into a store and we're like, I can't pay that kind of money for this. I know what it costs. I mean, I'm looking at what like low volume. You can only imagine it's even cheaper when you're doing like tens of thousands of units.
I would love to see what they're paying. That would just be crazy.
It's just got to be silly.
The one guy when we were buying the hats, I never had this happen before. He was like telling us what to charge the customers because he was like, charge your customers end list price or something like that. He was like really going into detail about it. I don't know what he was talking about.
Well, I think what he was saying is the catalog that he handed us, and this is just hats, and the catalog he handed us was like 400 pages.
Yeah.
So
he said he mailed it to you, didn't he? Too?
He did. I think that top one, if you want to grab it, is that the hats?
I don't want to expose who they are. Gotta.
Oh, I mean,
that's what it looks like.
Yeah. So that's a catalog of just hats, right?
We might get some hats, I think.
Man, there's some really cool hats, but we'll talk about that. But so I forget where I was going with that, but
you were saying you were talking about the end price. He was talking about end price.
Right. So in the catalog, it has, I guess, what their suggested sell price is. Yeah. So $20, and he goes, "Yeah, you're paying." Well, he goes, "Your cost is like half of that," or
he said it's
half of half, or something like that.
He said your price is.
He was like, it was $18. You're paying $9, and then
cut that in half.
He cut that in half, and it's $4.50 because you're wholesale. I mean, it was just something weird, and it was like, so what you're basically saying is like 300% markup or something like that. I'm like, exactly. Okay, I get it, right? This is how these guys can sell into like TJ Maxx or all these off-label places and still make money when it's like 70% off kind of thing.
Yeah, it was weird. I was still trying to wrap my head around it. It was like list price he was kind of talking about. It was weird.
Yeah,
but long story short,
kind of conversation.
Long story short, though, like I said, it could just going back to people, obviously, like how you're in the technology space, right? There's just people who have been in the clothing space for a long fucking time, and they're just like they're in that space. You know what I'm saying? And he's obviously been in it for quite a while. That he's talking breaking those numbers down.
So I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, we'll probably wrap up in a couple minutes on this. But so like the consideration was basically, where do we want to kind of invest our efforts in money? I mean, I know we know what we're doing, right? I mean, we got the clothing, we got the designs, we got the creativity. It's like, do we want to invest in continuing to just sort of outsource a lot of this and focus in on just the creative, or do we want to get more involved in the production and controlling that? And I'm sure every brand has kind of gone through these same, it's probably nothing new to the industry, right? For us, it's new, right? So we're trying to figure out where we want to go with it. I have a feeling we'll probably just take a swing at some cheap ass heat press. I don't want to say cheap ass, but we'll give a shot at the heat press and give a run on those, maybe t-shirts or something simple to see how it works out.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to try. I mean, when we're
hats,
when you're talking about like when you're talking about like where we're at, you're talking like we could take a chance on that and not risk losing it all. Like I talked to
That's true. I mean, we're such a small volume that we can get away with getting.
I mean, you could probably me and you together could probably just front like, what if we do lose everything? Just like, whatever. Here it is. We get back again. But long story short, I was having a conversation with my boss the other day.
I have a family, kids, 3 cars, and a mortgage. So I ain't fronting shit.
Yeah, right. Bro.
You're a single dude. You can front it all.
Well, I was talking to him, and he was like, "Yeah, for business, what our industry's in." He was like, "I got to really see how it works for like a year and a half." And I was like, "Well, by the time you're done paying salary, oh no." All right. Well, wrapping it up. By the time you're done paying salary, research and development for what it is, trying and hosting the products, you're in for like a couple $100,000 just before you even know if it works or doesn't work. Like we're talking sub 10 grand. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, fuck it, let's just do it.
I mean, look, you can certainly, you can drop some serious money even on heat transfer, right? Because you can actually buy the printers
that make the heat transfer.
That are a couple $1,000, and right. So you can do a turnkey thing, but even heat transfer turnkey, like start to finish in the whole process,
few G's, yeah.
It could be very easily 10 grand for an operation that's just putting out like a very, very small amount, right? If you start to get into commercial levels, you can spend some serious money. And we saw what was it, a $60,000 or $70,000 screen printing, rotating system that would do, I forget what it said. It was like 100 t-shirts an hour or something like that.
I don't even remember.
And that didn't even include the screen equipment, and it didn't include the ovens for baking it once it was sort of off of that, right? Yeah. So you could spend $100,000 easy on something.
You could really go crazy with it. And then I want to wrap up by saying, like, there's a person for every step of the way, I feel like. Like, for example, there was a person that was selling that $60,000 machine you're talking about. Then there's another guy right to the booth to the left of him that's selling the lasers that line up like, you know, how it comes in. And then there's like another person that sells like, it was like a $10,000 stand-up machine that comes with like a laptop built into it that you could print the screen press.
Yes.
You know, I'm talking about the guy who was like, oh, what are you guys doing, retail or whatever? And it's like another 10 grand. So yeah, like Joe said, easily 100 grand all in for one of these things. And you would have to, like, there's no shortcut to it besides like you probably have to have like a contract set up with like a school or like a corporation that you're guaranteed like,
yeah, you need, or you just need to be selling a good volume of clothes to justify, right?
Or
so
clothing, you have to be figuring something out.
Yeah, that was the ROI struggle because we were like, well, there's no way we could get the ROI out of a $10,000 embroidery machine at this point in time, right? Hopefully we get there at some point, but you know, the heat to print, we might be able to justify it. And I don't know. I it's not even the heat to print thing. It was the PVC and the silicones that I think would be super cool. Like that's like, I mean, that's branding we should have on every piece of clothing across the board, which is so anyway. I mean, let's close it out. But thanks to LA Apparel for getting us the free tickets. Love you guys for that. And then. Impressions 24. So for those that have any interest, right, it's a show that I think is held yearly in March in Atlantic City. I think they do it in some other locations too.
Yeah,
but
they travel around.
And it's a typical trade show, right? It was, I don't know, maybe 100 vendors, 150 vendors.
Yeah, it was actually.
I mean, it was a pretty.
Yeah, it was a good shop.
Little hall down in the convention center, and it was awesome because we've obviously always been on the outside, kind of looking in, and that's not we haven't done a trade show thing, and so. Made us feel kind of important when everybody's kissing our ass and they're like,
can we scan your badge? Can we scan your badge?
So, of course, now we're getting all the emails and stuff like that. But, yeah, it was cool. And like I said, it really gave us some food for thought. And I think you'll see some interesting things coming from us. I know we talk a lot, but I think this time we got some motivation to start taking some swings at some things. So,
absolutely.
Might not be next week, might not be next month, but it's coming. And, we're still here kicking with the clothing. So this episode was clearly a clothing episode, and I think it probably gave everybody a better look behind the scenes of what the hell we do with the clothing. And so anyway, so this will be episode 67, and
68. We'll talk more probably about like the casino that we went to that was ghost town.
All right, so let's close this out, and we'll catch you on the next episode.
See you
later. Peace out.